I'm like thinking the cheetah is like, you know, we're going to use like binoculars and see the cheetah, right? Yeah. and we walk through this door and he's like, there's a cheetah. Don't you see her? And we're like, no. And he's like, no, right there. And I'm like, fuck. I'm KP, KP Poly. I own Zero Declination in Reno, Nevada. We specialize in high-end electrical power systems for expedition overland rigs, and we sell OEV brand composite campers. So.
What's your background?
Okay. How deep you want to go? How far back?
How
I got started doing this?
I mean,
all right.
The crazier, the more interesting, the better.
So I don't know how interesting it is, but I actually grew up in a super small town. Didn't travel. Nobody I knew even had a passport, kind of thing. But there wasn't much else to do, so we worked on trucks and did my first engine swaps before I could drive. You know, there was nothing else to do. As a kid, like I grew up reading Four Wheeler magazine mostly about how to put 44s on square bodies and that sort of thing. Cause that's what we all did in my little farm town. But in the back of the magazine, they always had articles mostly from like the Turtle Expedition from Gary and Monica Westcott, about their adventures around the world in trucks. And that kind of it just planted this little seed in the back of my brain. Like, I never even thought you could do that, right? Like, I never thought about traveling to another country, let alone in a truck. And so, fast forward years later, first real experience, I rented a Hilux in Namibia and drove around for like 10 days. So we had done some backpacking in Uganda before, and the travel part was fun, but boy, having your own truck, like having that freedom to just stop where you want, sleep where you want, carry all your stuff with you, you're not on someone else's schedule. Really just made that seed. It had been planted and it just started to grow. Mm-hmm. And after that, I knew that just like traveling in a truck, like overland truck, motorcycle travel was really what I wanted to do. I wanted to see as much different culture and experience as much different just countrysides and mountains and forests and stuff that I didn't get to see otherwise. And I wanted to do it in a rig, you know? So ended up doing the Pan Am 2016 through 2019. Drove from Oregon all the way to Ushuaia in Argentina in my 05 Silverado Chevy pickup with a four-wheel camper on it. And then did a motorcycle trip too around South America, Bolivia to Ushuaia again on a KLR. And when I came back home, I did not want to get a real job. I just couldn't imagine going back to like working for someone else, you know, after all that just excessive level of freedom. It was really difficult. And so I started doing 12-volt wiring for people's vans and campers and stuff like that. Growing up on the farm, I got really good at it, doing like flatbed wire lights and stuff for trailers. Everyone else hated it, and I always just had a knack for it.
Oh, it really like doesn't matter what you're wiring. It's all the same.
It's all the same.
Here,
that's my secret. Don't tell anybody that. It's all the same. It's not a big deal. But yeah, so that's kind of how I got the shop got its start, and started the shop in 2019 when I got back from South America. And it just, of course, with COVID and the way the industry exploded, the shop exploded. Got super busy, and yeah, so I've had the shop ever since, and it's been a really good experience. I feel really lucky that I was able to build on my experiences and do something that keeps me in this area that I have a passion for.
Yeah. And
helps me share that experience with other people. So
what sparked like when you rented a truck in Namibia? I mean, what sparked going? Was that your first time traveling somewhere like that, or like?
I had
that's not exactly like a common place. Like
it's a jump.
Like oh, I'm gonna go to Europe. Okay,
right.
You know, whatever. Like you're not going to Botswana or something like that, right? You know?
Yeah. Did like a Mediterranean cruise the year before. but didn't spend much time on the boat. Like as soon as it would get to a port, just bail off and basically explore all the cities, wherever we were, with the Rick Steves guidebook, and really enjoyed that. And the next year had an opportunity to go to Africa and took it. And that was the way I chose to get around. So yeah. And it was fun. It was wasn't like one of those outfitted trucks. It was literally from Enterprise at the airport. Had a little canopy on it and now never aired it back up. Put a bunch, bought 20 gallons of water in 1 gallon jugs, threw them in the back. And, there were some planks and an old carpet beside the road, and I chucked those in just in case we got stuck. And that was it.
Bare minimum.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
So that, I guess that's translated into you doing the motorcycle trips, being able to do it without having 5 tons of gear packed on your truck.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. The motorcycle actually has been a really good backpacking, and then motorcycling have been really good experiences, to prep for truck travel. I travel pretty light, admittedly lighter than most people. My full rig here weighs about 8,600 pounds. I know people with 4Runners that weigh more than that.
Oh yeah.
And this is a house,
Yeah.
And so, 'cause I just don't bring that much stuff. I try to keep things light and simple. And I always tell people, pack for the mode of transportation below you, right? If you're in a truck, pack like you got a motorcycle. You actually have to bring less stuff. I don't have to bring a stove. There's already a stove in it. You know what I mean? If you're on a motorcycle, pack like you're backpacking, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always totally work out. You got to bring, vehicle specific crap with you, but it does help.
I guess I'm not that bad. Like I was talking about how you probably bring way less gear than I would, but I think my bigger issue is I'm bringing camera gear and that, so.
Yep. Camera gear takes up a lot.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I have
and it's I'm not, the case is the same size, whether I take half of it out of it or not.
Might as well fill it up. Yeah,
exactly.
Have all that stuff with you. Yep. Yeah, the extra stuff takes up a lot of space. So, but I've been lucky to be pretty minimal on that stuff too.
Yeah.
So
this is your, second truck build? Was your first other Silverado was your first?
Yeah, the first, I have an '05 Silverado. It's the one that did the Pan Am. That was my first truck build, and just like anything, it went through iterations. I bought that truck brand new in 2005 when I was 18, so it went through a lot of different changes. When I left for the Pan Am, it had 180,000 miles on it already.
Wow.
So it crossed over 200K in Bolivia on the Altiplano.
Wow.
And it's at 280 now, and we still use it as a shop truck goes up to Expo every year and stuff. So, so that was the first one. But of course, as all car people know, many iterations.
Yeah.
It's had 3 different truck beds on it, And then this is my second one. Same thing though. It's been through 3 major iterations. Had a slide-in camper in it, had a 4-wheel flatbed, and then I upgraded to the composite, the HB OEV camper. But so yeah, my second truck though, second big truck personally. I don't swap rigs much. I spend a lot of time planning to fit my goals, buy the truck for that, buy the parts for that, and then use it. I mean, building is fun, but I prefer to use the things I did, to make it do what I wanted it for. That's the fun part for me. So
you guys started the business off of you doing the 12-volt wiring and whatnot. At what point did it turn into you guys started doing, because you guys do a whole build if you guys are asked to, correct?
Yeah, I'll do a rig build.
So what, was there a turning point where that came in, or when you just started doing the wiring? I'm obviously doing full suspension and all that stuff, so a lot more than just the wiring part.
Right. Yeah, and we actually at our shop, we don't do suspension work. We will handle a full build, but we have shops in town. I'm a real big believer in specialization. Some shops are better at GM stuff. Some shops are better at Ford stuff. We are really good at wiring and the basics, and then I will outsource it to another shop. We're not doing regearing and stuff like that, but if a customer, my favorite thing, like I said earlier, I like to build a rig for a purpose. Come to me, tell me what your goal is. I will help you build the rig that does that, meets that goal. And so if that goal includes regearing or whatever, we take it to whoever's best for that. And I'm upfront about that, right? And we have deals with shops in town, so the price is the same for everybody. We just handle it. I speak truck to the truck guys. You don't have to. Yeah. And then you come pick it up and it's done. Yeah. So that's kind of where it started, because people would ask for my advice and stuff like that, and I was sending them off to do other stuff anyway. And I was like, we can just roll this into part of the business.
So really, you turn into like you're consulting it.
Kinda, yeah. I kind of like a general contractor sort of thing.
Yeah, makes sense.
And a lot of shops actually don't always do all their own work. They're just not always upfront about it.
Yeah.
So we do very light custom fab. We do all the tray swaps, stuff like that. We take the bed off, put it on. We don't do suspension work typically. We'll do bumpers and winches and lights, same as everybody else. Air compressors. But kind of started the business really hockey sticked because we started specializing in four-wheel camper power retrofits. And never sold campers, never had like a major brand that we sold. We used to be more of a job shop, install shop. The first OEV that came in, I dropped their electrical panel, and I was so impressed with the work that they'd done that I called them that day and said, I want to be a dealer. You don't have anybody in this area. And they were like, who the hell are you? And I'm like, no, I should be like, you should let me sell your stuff. And I think took about 6 months. I think it was when I finished this build with the 4-wheel on it. And then they were like, wait, that thing's pretty legit. You still want to sell our campers? And I was like, yes. So, because the quality is so high, there's no work to do to them. We're not upgrading them. They come in, they're ready to go, everything. And I want stuff that works from day one. You leave the shop and you can camp on your way home. You can leave my shop and drive to Argentina is kind of the idea. So,
I mean, it's kind of one of those things where like, could you do it in one of the other ones? Sure, but this does it a lot better.
Does it a lot nicer. Yeah. I typically say it's kind of like the difference between a Hyundai and a Lexus.
Yeah.
It'll do the same thing. They'll get your kids to soccer practice, but one of them's going to do it a lot nicer and a lot more reliably.
Yeah.
So, it's the same. If I had to choose to either not do it or do it in something else, I'm going to do it no matter what, right? But if I get to take something really nice, obviously, just there's the actual travel experience part. Like you saw how quick setup is on this thing. Yeah. Just don't spend any time setting up. Don't spend any time tinkering with crap, making it work. Everything works all the time. Yeah. That for me is huge. Yeah. So, because I want to have the experience of the travel and the exploration.
I mean, I guess that's kind of the same thing for me too. Is like my 4Runner, I have it very just simple setup so that it works. There's a lot of cool things out there. Like you got the S pods and all that stuff, so you can run whatever on it. And it's like, don't get me wrong, I think it's cool, or it's a cool product, but
totally cool.
To me, it's like a thing. It's like whenever it adds an extra step into something that could just be like turning on a light bar. Mm-hmm. Like whenever you're adding extra steps and having to flip through screens, stuff like that, like it's or you have like these new cars and trucks that have whole tablet in the center console where like your whole air control and everything's all you got to like flip through menus.
Man, I just want to turn a button.
I just want it to work.
I'm a cranky old man now. Yeah, totally.
Same thing.
Yep. Yeah, I'm a big believer in simplicity with builds, like we were talking about earlier. Tell a lot of my customers, every single thing you do to your rig makes it worse in some way. Yep. So you better make sure that whatever you're doing to your rig, it's going to make it worse in some way. It better offset that by improving it in another way. Yeah. And so be really conscious about the things you're doing to it and make sure all those modifications work together. Yeah. I'm not saying don't modify your rig. I'm just saying be very mindful about what you do to it.
Well, a lot of people just they look up on the internet and see like people telling them what they should get without any actual reasoning behind it.
Yeah. I always like to tell people too, like when they're asking about international travel, they're like, oh man, I was talking to this guy and he said it's too dangerous to do whatever it is. And I'm like, well, did he go there?
Yeah.
They almost never have actually done the thing, right? Yeah. So only take advice from someone that's done the thing.
Yeah.
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 I'm a big fan of that too.
It makes sense. Yeah. You've gone everywhere with your campers. What's something about the OEV that has set it apart from the other campers you've had?
Man, for me, I mean, other than just the general build quality, right? The stuff doesn't break. Everything works from the factory. I'm not tinkering with things all the time. I mean, I am, but I own the shop, right? So anything I'm tinkering with is just for fun.
It's because you want to take
It's
it apart and put it back
product
together.
development. Yeah. Because at my core, I'm still a tinkerer, right? We're car guys. For me, it's been basically the construction quality of the exterior and the soft sides. The insulation is so much better than anything else I've ever had. I'm a skier. This will be my third winter full time in this camper here in Reno, and the Tahoe area. So I go through the winter in it.
Which I do want to talk about that.
Okay.
That'll be like its own
thing.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest thing, just how well insulated it is and how well it holds up to like rough weather, like wind and stuff like that. Other soft side campers, even some of the hard side stuff, you get hard winds, they're flexing, they're flapping, they're loud, they're rocking all over the place. This thing's pretty solid. I mean, the roof doesn't flex at all. I can do pull-ups from that roof when it's up. I can stand on the roof when it's up. It doesn't flex, doesn't move. The fabric doesn't flap. The fabric's thick. It's basically a puffy jacket with a ski shell on the outside. So for me, I think that's far and away the biggest difference. I don't think I could have done 3 seasons in a camper here in the wind, unless it was something like this.
No, you are right about that. Like my brother-in-law has a Lance camper on his truck, and we talked about with like the pop-up type campers, how like I've had to like tell him how like, no, this is different.
It's a different thing.
It's not like, because like a lot of other ones, it's like a tent on the inside, really, or like some of them even have like holes, like they're not like you look in the corners and there's
literally a hole.
Like you can see outside right there. That's not a window.
Nope.
Like,
yep.
And whereas this is, even though it's soft, when you're inside, it doesn't feel like it.
Not at all.
No.
Yeah. So
and plus when you're going down the road, you're not 12 feet tall either.
Right.
So that adds a lot of value to it.
Yeah, I don't think I could. People ask all the time if they see me going to a hard side, and I don't.
I was kind of curious about that because you do live out of it. If I mean, I would think most people would do a hard side for that situation.
Yeah, for me, the beauty of living out of it, one of the reasons I live in it, is just the versatility it gives me, where I can take it. If I get a hard side, that cuts out that versatility, that main benefit of living in it.
Yeah.
You can see the top of this thing is all beat up. I've had it through some really tight spots. There are a lot of spots I wouldn't get if it was this tall all the time. And so it's a big deal for me to have that lower profile to just stuff it into through the trees and the brush where I want it to go.
If it fits, it sits.
If it fits, it gets. Yeah, absolutely. And it usually fits. It fits more places than people think it would.
I mean,
so I'm also aggressive.
We'll hop to it on it.
Yeah, you'll get it in. Yep.
No, I mean, like, I guess I look at these very differently than, say, like 4-wheel campers. I mean, they all kind of have their place, right?
Yeah.
Like, these are just very utilitarian, and they're meant to do one thing and get you there and get you back and not break along the way.
Right.
We had Matt on here recently from Truck House, and
man, they make nice stuff. Their stuff is so nice. I love. I mean, if I had $600,000, but it's so nice. They engineer it.
Well, and like, looking at them and stuff, and like spending the time with them and whatnot, like comparing the two, it's like I almost don't even put these like. They're almost like not even competitors because they're almost like for a different thing.
Yep. Yeah, they're whole steps ahead.
Yeah, like, and it's not saying anything bad about one or the other. It's like this is just very purpose built. It's just get you there and do it well, and that
stuff is engineering art.
Yeah.
It's beautiful work they do.
Especially like their attention to detail is
so nice.
Crazy.
Yeah. We actually lost a sale to Truck House. Guy was super nice, really serious about buying one of these.
Yeah.
Came in, we spent a lot of time with him, and we knew he was looking at Truck House as well, and we even talked to the guys about it.
Here, I mean, they're right here.
Yeah. And he's like, finally we lose the sale, right? We could give him a call. He's like, or he called us, and he's like, yeah, we decided to go to Truck House, and my guy Jared, he was like, man, how do we get this sale back? I'm like, we don't. we don't get it. He's got the money to buy this thing and he wants it. Like, we don't. You know, it's an amazing rig, and I don't think we can convince him otherwise. You know. So because the attention, it is engineering art. Their stuff is so nice.
Yeah.
So
no, I but like talking to them, it's like, you know, because we were both at the LA Auto Show. We both had our trucks pretty almost right next to each other. We were just, you know, 30 feet away from each other. And like, you know, they came over to look at ours and whatnot. And it's like, neither of us have anything bad to say about each other, you know?
Yeah, and those guys, when you talk to them, like, they're pretty pro OEV. They like OEV stuff. They send us customers sometimes. Like, if someone can't afford theirs, they're like, these guys' stuff is really nice. Like, head on over there.
Yeah.
So, and I'm consistently just impressed, even though this is now my third winter. When I get up some trail where there's wheels off the ground and it's pretty ridiculous, trucks shouldn't even be there. I get there, I pop the top, it's like 11 seconds, and I go inside and I have a house.
Yeah.
It's a nice house.
And nothing is
and
all
everything's
over
in
the
its place, and I'm
Everything
just like, this is wild. I don't know how to explain to people how nice this is. You know, I'm like on a Jeep trail. There's guys with side-by-sides, and then I'm camped there, and I've got an apartment, like a nice studio apartment, you know, and I just love it.
And they always give you the look like,
They
what
do.
the hell are you doing
Yeah,
here?
they do, man. I love it when they go by and they got like their wife on there, and they got the goggles and they're covered in dirt. Their hair's all tangled up, and they see me go by, and you know that lady thinks this thing's a Winnebago, you know, and you just see her look at her husband like, what? You said you couldn't get here in a car. Like, that guy's got an RV, and I'm just driving with the air conditioning on, drinking my coffee.
Get kind of hungry, you go make some lunch.
Stop, make myself a grilled cheese. Yeah, totally.
Man, it was definitely the benefit to it.
Yeah.
I mean, but so you do live out of this full time.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, do you like consider yourself like homeless in a way?
I guess. Yeah. Like, I've never really thought, I mean, we all joke about it, right?
Yeah.
Because I have a lot of friends that are we're all the home, you know, purposefully homeless.
Yeah.
You know, no, because I could have this is a very nice home.
This is just by choice.
This is by choice, so not really. You know, I could easily just go get an apartment downtown if I wanted.
Yeah.
This is just a lifestyle choice I've made. So not really. I mean, like, jokingly, yes, but you know, it almost feels disrespectful. You know, because there's people that are actually homeless, then they don't have. You know, they don't have an induction stove and a heater
And a heater that can keep you 70 degrees when it's 10 outside.
The coldest I think 12 below is the coldest I've had this one so far, and I was like frying bacon in my boxers, like it didn't matter. You couldn't even tell it's cold outside.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really the insulation and the heater is really nice in these.
So what's that like though? Like living in a truck bed size box?
I really like the small space. You know, I'm pretty active, so I don't spend a lot of time inside it anyway. In the summer, I'm weekdays I'm at work.
It's more like a bedroom.
Yeah, I'm just sleeping and cooking in there. It does make a pretty nice office. You know, when I'm out remote, I'll still do a couple hours. Like, I'm headed to Mexico literally today, as soon as we're done. And I'll do a few hours every day where I set up my laptop and, you know, Starlink and work. And it makes a nice office, you know, but if you're efficient with the things you bring and you're purposeful about how you do things and organize, you just don't need that much space. Yeah. And so I don't miss the space at all. And then, you know, the rest of the time, if I'm not working, I'm outside, I'm riding my bike, or we're climbing or skiing or whatever it is. And so it just makes a nice home base to, you know, go back and make grilled cheese and soup or whatever. Yeah. And then, the bed is comfortable. Good place to sleep. Yeah. You know, and you get to wake up somewhere rad every day. And
because yours has the 360 windows on it too.
Yeah, there's 360
all around you. Yeah.
It's got views all around. Yeah, it's really nice.
That's super cool.
It's super cool. So yeah, and admittedly, like, it's not for everyone, but I really like it. You know, I've spent a lot of time living in trucks, traveling, and so it's a really natural move for me to just stay in this one now, and lets me save up money. Eventually, I'd like to buy we're renting the shop space now. Eventually, I'll buy my own commercial building. So kind of just using that cash that I'd be spending on my own personal rent to stack up so I can buy our own space. And yeah, there's almost no drawback for me.
Yeah.
You know, for living in it. Here in Northern Nevada, it's really easy as well. Like, there's so much public land.
It's like almost the whole state.
Basically the entire state. Yeah.
If it's not military land,
if there's not a house on it and there's not a guy with a gun, you're fine.
Yeah.
And that's most of the places, right? So Yeah, like I was showing you on the way in. I mean, most of my favorite camp spots are 5 to 10 minutes from the shop. I'm in 4x4 almost every day. And because they're a little bit rougher to get there, I don't share them with anybody. There's nobody out there. It's also close to town, so nobody thinks of it as a place to go camp.
Yeah.
But it's almost all
just
BLM or US
right where
Forest
we
Service.
just were. I wouldn't have even thought of like.
Nope. And it's pretty rad.
Like you get there, you
It's
go
a cool
through
spot.
Like I was like kind of following you, and we're just going through a neighborhood. I'm like, how are we going? Like,
I have one of my favorite spots where basically it looks like you're driving through someone's yard.
yeah,
But it's a real road. Like it's supposed to be there. It's legal. But people, it just blows their mind. They're like, where are you going? You just like dip into this rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And then you pop out and it's just, thousands of acres of public land
Yeah.
and 4x4 rows. So with beautiful views of the city and stuff.
Yeah.
It's nice.
that's super cool.
Yeah.
I know you've done a lot of like going to South America and stuff like that. Have you ever shipped one of your rigs?
Yes. Yeah.
So what's that process and experience like?
Apparently it's getting much more difficult now. A lot of my friends are shipping and they've been relaying that it's getting really tricky. They just don't want to deal with like individuals shipping. You still can. When I did it, it was fairly easy and there's a lot of bureaucracy, I had to ship around the Darien on the way down through, between Panama and Colombia. And that wasn't bad. A lot of people do it, so it's not like you're the first one. Just stuff the Chevy and camper into a high cube container.
Yeah.
And
So yours can fit in a container.
that
probably makes it easier.
One of my personal rig build specifications is it must fit in a container. This one will fit in a container barely. And that's just, it's nice because then you have shipping options, but also if it fits in a container that certain size, like means that it's more accessible on the trails and stuff like that.
So when you're setting up your suspension and all that, you're taking that into
I'm taking that into
account.
Yep. It has to be on 35s, but I would never international travel on 37s. There's just no reason.
There's
no reason
I think
to
it
do it.
becomes a lot harder to find 37s too when you start going.
Even 35s are unheard of. They're like,
Yeah.
what are these?
Yeah.
So, also I like the little bit lower gearing and stuff that
Yeah.
you get. There's not a lot of fast highways, and I found international travel. Everyone thinks you're going to get extreme off-road stuff. Like it's your house and you're 5,000 miles from, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also they don't have the public land most places.
Yeah.
You're not doing the wheeling that we do here in the States. Like we have it really good for
a lot of people
off-road.
don't realize how lucky we
We're
are
so
here.
lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're really lucky for wheeling. You get those opportunities, but anybody else that's wheeling in those locations, they're in like Defenders on 31s and stuff.
Well, that makes sense because we haven't put it up yet, but we recently did like a quick interview with I believe her name is Tammy. She lives up here or near here actually. At the LA Auto Show, she was from Krug Trucks. Explorer trucks, something like that.
Interesting. All right.
Another camper company. But
Do they make them here in the area?
no. So it's actually Arctic Trucks that like builds them.
Oh, cool.
The trucks are like built with Arctic Trucks, and then she just happens to live here.
Yeah.
But they have one of those like at the auto show they had was a F550 chassis.
Yeah.
A 6-wheeled F550.
Okay. Yeah.
But hers, that is not her truck. Hers, she has one of those I think they're like the Zuzu type.
Oh yeah, like a
chassis.
Fuso, like the flat. Yep.
Yeah, one of the flat front
Those are
ones,
cool.
the whole exo cage kind of thing. And they've done that where they took it to Iceland.
Yeah.
But that like checks out what you're talking about, how there isn't the public land that we have, because she was telling me how like there really isn't off-roading. There's dirt roads,
right?
But you're really just on the roads.
Yeah, you're on roads.
Yeah.
I've found like, I feel like most international travelers will tell you this. Like I remember specifically one time like driving up this volcano in Ecuador and just put the winch on the front, air down, and I'm in 4-low and really feel like a badass overlander. And you get to the top and there's like 6 drunk locals in a Nissan Sentra, and you're like, all right.
Some guys riding a scooter.
Yeah, there's some dude in a scooter with his wife and a goat on the back, and every time. So like it was easier and better for me. It was more comfortable for me.
It's the same thing here where we do the same thing. We air down our 40s and get to the top, and there's a Prius in there.
Totally. Yeah, actually, I just got back from a motorcycle trip in Mongolia, and the number of Prii that they had, it was like 50% Toyota hybrids. And they have like one paved road in the whole freaking country. And like all the herders and stuff, they're basically using Priuses now. Like they put their yurts on the top of the Prius and they run out across the grasslands, and like that's what they're using. And it's rough. The roads are shitty. Like it's muddy, they're rutted, and they're just sending it in these Priuses. Like, and it's pretty wild how capable any car is if you're willing to drive it with reckless abandon. Yeah. Yep.
That's crazy. So, of all the, I mean, I'm sure your list is long of the places you've been. What's your favorite place that you've gone to, and what was your least favorite?
Ooh. So favorite, both are hard. Favorite's hard because it sort of changes depending. I really love Mexico. Not necessarily for overlanding, just as a place to visit. It's close. I love the culture. I love the food. The country itself is so diverse. You know, they have mountains and deserts and beautiful beaches and stuff like that. I mean, Baja obviously is rad with a truck, but so is mainland. It's also nice on a motorcycle. I think Mexico's really top for one of my favorite places to go. And it might be partly because it's so close. It's just easy. You know, you don't have to fly across the world. I also love Argentina, kind of a lot of the same things. The food is excellent. The wine is really good, and there's a lot more public land or the big mountains and stuff like that. I would say for like a single, just amazing overland destination, honestly, Peru. People don't talk about it much, but the same thing. They have huge mountains. I mean, you can be 15,000 feet. And then you can be down on the desert on the coast, you know, right on the Pacific Ocean. The food's really good. And I just found it to be a really amazing place to have a truck, to travel with a truck. Because there's just really diverse landscapes, and there's a lot of opportunity to explore and drive and see cool things on little roads. The ruins and stuff like that, you know, like, and it's just rad to be driving at 14,000 feet and there's just a llama, you know, with a glacier in the background, and that's just you're just driving. Like it's really cool. And yeah, a lot of people don't mention Peru, and I really like it.
I don't know if I recall anyone mentioning Peru.
As an overland destination, it's probably one of my favorite places I've ever been with a truck.
Maybe we shouldn't put that in here. That's gonna blow up the spot.
It's gonna blow it up. Yeah. I mean, luckily it's hard to get to.
Watch next year. You're gonna see like 30.
All these people going to Alaska are gonna go to Peru. Yeah. Yep.
That's gonna be the new hot spot.
Yep.
Every YouTube video.
Yeah. So I really liked Peru. So it was cool. Least favorite? Man, it's kind of a hard question, and also it's kind of a loaded question. It feels bad, you know? Yeah. I've been to Bolivia twice, like the Altiplano, like up high, and I've never had like a great experience there. Not like dangerous or anything like that. It's just, first of all, it's really freaking high. Like, it's hard to breathe, you know? Like,
I can imagine
that. It's a great place to have a truck because it's just infinite exploration kind of thing, but there's not a lot of people. There's not a lot of culture in that area. I've heard really good things about the jungle parts of Bolivia, but I've never been there to that part. So I don't know. And the people are nice enough, but they always sort of seem like they're confused. Like they're not sure why I'm even there. You know what I mean?
That does
like,
make sense.
What are you doing here? The food's not that good. Up high. I think it might be better down in the Amazon side. Versus places like Peru or even Mexico, like people are just jazzed you're there. Yeah. They're like, hey, you're here. Here's some food. Like meet my uncle, kind of thing. And I really like that part. So,
so when you're like at some of these places like that, is it? Because I've never had the chance to like travel, and barely even hardly even out of California, but
which is great. I mean, there's a lot of cool things around here.
It's a big state.
It's a big state. Yeah,
but like, do you kind of feel like you're out of place in some of these places? Like, or is it more common to see rigs like this?
Definitely, like I stand out, right? Like, and the trucks stand out, right? Like, the thing is, a lot of times, like by the time you're in, somewhere like Peru, they don't really even see them. They don't even know what it is, So I definitely feel out of place doesn't seem correct because I feel like it's my place. Like I feel comfortable there. But also I definitely stand out, right? You're going to stand out. You definitely going to stand out. Bolivians are like this tall, you know? So I'm tall. I'm tall in like a lot of the high places in Latin America. But standing out isn't necessarily a bad thing. You kind of get sort of a special experience. A lot of these places, I think a lot of people around the world just love to invite travelers and outsiders in and show them their culture. I'm stoked just to show you Reno and take you to my favorite coffee shop. It's kind of like an innate part of humanity. I have so many stories and good experiences where just because I stand out, I've had this like really cool experience of someone showing me their favorite things of their town, that sort of thing. Like it's pretty fun. It's probably one of my favorite things about traveling. Yeah. Is just you roll into town and they're like, you're not from here. Let me show you all the stuff, let me take care of you.
As being like an addictive thing too, where wherever you go, it's a new experience,
Yeah, totally.
Like just getting lunch is a new experience.
Yeah. And something people don't talk about a lot, that gets exhausting after a while. Like sometimes you just want to go get your food or whatever.
Yeah.
And when you're on the road full time for a long time, it's harder than you think. It's not a vacation.
So do you is there ever like times where like you're out in the just crazy exotic place where you're just like, man, I could go for a hamburger right now?
Yes, there are no good hamburgers outside of the States, basically. Like you might get lucky and get something pretty good, but totally. You miss it. Like as soon as I get back to the US, it's always like I immediately am like hamburger, medium rare, IPA now. Like totally I love traveling. I love all these other countries. I love the US. I mean, it's my home. The camping and the exploration, the overland experience here is really good. We're super lucky. And we have a good culture. People, I think because we can't see the forest for the trees. I've had this argument with people before. They're like, we don't have a culture in the US and we don't have a food culture or whatever. Like we do. Yeah. We just don't see it because it's ours. Here. We're here. We don't see the difference, you know? Yeah. So totally. I miss hamburgers when I'm gone.
Which makes sense. I mean, like you go to Japan, it's like they have a thing for like the JDM cars and tuner cars, stuff like that. It's like out here we think it's cool to have like an imported like Skyline. Out there they think it's cool to have like a Camaro.
Right, totally. Like, Like you always want what's different. Yeah.
Or they'll like convert their Sylvia to be a left-hand drive
right car, and you're like, what are you doing?
We're like, why?
Why? Don't do that. Yeah, no, that's totally true. I remember doing a lot of like everybody here wants like a 70 series Land Cruiser or a Hilux or whatever. You don't want that thing. It's slow. Go buy like a 1980 Chevy pickup with a 6.2 diesel in it, and it'll be faster and more reliable. Like, well, I mean, not more reliable than a 70. They're very slow. It'll be more comfortable. Man, they're slow. But so are like the non-turbo 70s and stuff. Like that Hilux that I had in Namibia was pretty new. Had the 3-liter turbo in it, I think. And it was like that year or whatever it was, 2013. It was a brand new truck. Yeah. Slow as shit. We're just used to different standards here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that makes sense though, because like people in America will look at like a Hilux out here and we're like, well, why don't we get that?
I get that. People are like, we should have that. I'm like, no one would buy it.
We also go 80 miles an hour.
Right.
Down the freeway everywhere we go.
That Hilux is wrapped out at 80 miles an hour. Like that's all it's going to do. And I'm not talking the old one, I'm talking the new one.
Yeah.
They're great trucks, but they're not built for what we do. We have big roads, big spaces. We have big trucks to haul crap.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Well, and that's coming from somebody that's done the thing and been there.
Yeah. I remember being like a few camp spots down in South America and having my Chevy, my 05 Silverado with a 6-liter gas in it, and people were just mind blown you could even buy a motor that big, and we'd be camped next to like a 70 series or a Defender or something, like Swiss couple, and show them the camper, and the wife is like, why do we live in this thing? Like, what is this? And the boyfriend's like, well, because, the Defender's better off-road. She's like, we've been on pavement for the last like 30 days. What off-road? You're on the road. It doesn't matter. Yeah. And they're like, well, and you can't, people are always like, oh, well, you can get parts for it or whatever. You can't, there's always some place where you can't get parts for whatever it is you have.
Yeah.
My my advice is always just buy something that won't break. Don't overload it. Don't modify the crap out of it. Just buy something that's reasonably reliable from the beginning.
Yep.
Don't stress it to the limit, and it won't break. You won't need to buy parts. And if you do, you can DHL them in.
Don't slap a massive turbo on your LS.
Don't do that.
And then,
Nope.
and then go halfway across the world.
Nope. And definitely don't overload it. I've seen so many people with so many problems because they overloaded some rig that wasn't designed to carry that weight. And, they start breaking springs, transmissions go, stuff like that. Like, just buy something that's built to carry the weight. Don't stress it. Yeah. And it probably won't break. You won't even need.
I mean, out here you see people loading 10,000 pounds onto their Tacoma,
and
just to drive to work.
Yeah, just to go to the coffee shop and back.
Yeah,
yeah, totally. So those frames break. I've seen them.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of them.
Yeah, my Silverado, like I said, it had 180,000 miles on it when I left Oregon, and I did a wheel bearing, replaced a few front end parts by the time I got to Peru, and a U-joint.
Is stuff like
that was it.
Still pretty easy to come by out there? Or?
I had to DHL in the wheel bearing. Went to a really nice Chevy dealership in Ecuador, and I'm like, these guys will be able to get me one, right? And I'm like, it's dos mil quinientos. He's like, no, you mean mil quinientos? I'm like, no, dos mil. It's a 2,500. And he's like, really? I'm like, yeah, no, it has 8 lugs. I'm like, tiene ocho tuercos. And he's like, and he calls all the other guys and they come look at the truck. So they all come out. They'd never seen a 3/4 ton Chevy.
Really?
You could get half-ton parts. They had half-ton Chevys, but they'd never seen an HD. And so he couldn't get me the part. He was like typing, finally turns it around. He's on like US eBay. I'm like, no, I can do that.
Yeah.
So I ended up just going to Rock Auto, same as we would here, and had him ship it to Ecuador. Via DHL.
Did you like call them and be like,
Nope.
here's the situation?
Didn't even have to do that.
Really?
No, there's a system, like it's, we live in a global, world. So it was massively expensive.
I can imagine.
It was like.
I mean, what else are you going to do though?
Yeah, it's a unit bearing. It's pretty heavy. They're like 60 pounds on these HD trucks. And it was like $180 for the wheel bearing. Another like $200 to freight it. And then there was import tax. I think I spent like $600 on this wheel bearing,
Man.
But that was it. Like that, whatever, know. And the wheel bearing, they go out slow. I was still driving it. You could just hear it rumbling.
Yeah.
We could still cruise around Ecuador until the part came in. Yeah. So it wasn't a big deal. And it's a fast change. I can do a wheel bearing on one of these trucks in like less than an hour.
Yeah, with basic tools.
Yeah. So, because people, I think too, they carry all these spare parts, and again, it's weight. First of all, you can't predict what's going to break. Yeah. So you're carrying parts you probably won't need, and you're going to sort of break things because you're carrying all this weight of all this stuff. People are like, you need to carry a drive line. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Why? Like, I'm carrying a drive line?
Like for me, it's like with my 4Runner, like if I know I'm going to be doing serious wheeling, like, okay, maybe a drive shaft, or not even a drive shaft, like a CV axle.
Right.
Like a CV axle and like maybe a ball joint.
Right.
That's like the two things to
kind
of worry about.
I carried a serpentine belt because that thing goes, there's no warning, and you're screwed.
Yeah.
I carried a serpentine belt and then fluids enough to like do a half the transmission filled with fluid. I carried non-mixed coolant. So I always have water in the camper, and it doesn't matter if it's distilled or not. If you need water in that thing, put water in it.
It's the same weight if it's a jug of straight coolant versus 50-50. So,
Exactly.
I mean,
yep. But you can get a lot more out of it.
Yeah.
So I carried basic fluids in case something catastrophic happens. Carried a lot of JB Weld just in case.
Yeah.
And
JB welded a handful of radiators before.
Yeah, and a few like hoses and like hose clamps is general stuff. Yep. But I didn't really carry any spare parts, because most stuff on a modern rig gives you some notice. Bonus of driving, an 05 60 gas Vortec, like everyone's already had whatever's going to break, what's going to break already. Like you know what weak points are. Yeah. And I just fixed all the weak points. It had a lot of miles on it, so I put a new water pump and stuff like that before I left, even though the one was good. Fuel pump too.
So this guy's a gas.
Yeah.
You. So do you have like a particular reason for going gas versus a Duramax?
Simplicity. That's the biggest thing. These are way more reliable. I don't care what anybody tells you. The guy that's like, no, man, diesels go forever. I'm like, where is it right now? He's like, well, it's in the shop. You know, I'm like, I know it is because you fucking injectors or what. Like,
what's that saying about diesels? Like, was it shell out another 100 or something like that too?
I think, I mean, they're just so much more complicated now that they just can't keep up with the reliability. With the def and stuff like that. Like these Vortex, they don't care what you throw in there. They'll burn anything, you know. They're a lot lighter.
Throw like 5-year-old gas.
Dude, it doesn't care. It doesn't give a shit.
It might not like it, but it'll go.
It'll just get bad gas mileage. It'll just burn a lot of that bad gas, but it's going to burn it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a big fan of gas trucks. I think the diesels are great. They have a lot of power, but they don't have the reliability of these things. You know, these are incredibly simple to work on. When you need to work on them, they're much cheaper. I could buy a whole motor for this thing for like $3,000, you know, and that's like an injection pump.
Yeah.
You know, on a diesel, on a Duramax.
So what's your like? Because I know these campers are a lot lighter than they look.
Yep.
I know that. So what's your like fuel economy like with a gasser versus
It's bad. Especially like in South America. I do track it because I find it helps.
Especially if you're buying gas by the liter.
Man, it was expensive. The gas part was expensive, but thing is, when you're traveling like that, at least the way I travel, I don't travel very fast. So I'm not actually doing that many miles, you know? So that's like the fuel cost wasn't a big part of it. So around here in this truck, it has the 6-speed transmission. So it's a little better, and it has the VVT. It's a little better than my 05. I get about 10. If I drive like a reasonable person, I can get 11 to 12. But apparently I always have somewhere to be, and my house has 37s. So I get about 10, sometimes into the 9.5 range with this truck. But again, it only costs me money when I'm driving it. Friggin' diesel will break just sitting there. So, I like that for the predictability and what it's going to cost.
That makes sense.
Yeah. The Chevy, like I was talking about, like Peru, Bolivia, stuff like that. The mountains were super steep. I was getting 8.5, you know,
shit, my 4Runner gets that.
Dude, people do, like, if we're being honest with ourselves, like everybody with their overloaded Tacomas and stuff, like you're getting the same as me, but I'm doing 95 miles an hour. So
when we went to Overland Expo in Oregon, because I pulled the trailer for that one, I didn't bring it to Colorado, but I pulled the trailer to Oregon, and I was curious on Ken's truck on the Prospector because his is diesel.
Yeah.
I was curious if he was getting better fuel economy. So his truck, I mean, he's around 12,000 pounds, I think.
Man, they're heavy.
Yeah. He's floating around 12,000 pounds, was getting better fuel economy than my 4Runner pulling the trailer. Was.
And the diesels do get better. Like, they're going to burn less, right? But for me, it's just the predictability and cost. Like, as soon as it breaks, it's real expensive to fix it.
Yep.
So, whereas these don't really break. And if they do, it's like $50.
I mean, if you're in Botswana, you're probably not finding parts for your Cummins.
No, you're not. And I found that too. Like, even down in Mexico and into Belize, they still have HD trucks, like GMs and stuff. They generally don't have diesels. They're too expensive. No one can afford it.
LSs, I'm sure.
Totally. Yeah. In fact, I was in all the way down in Chile. I took it in to get the oil changed, and the guy knew what motor it was. He'd just never seen one. He just knew what it was. He's like, I got the filter.
So because yours is the was it 6.0? 6.0?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just a regular LS.
Yep.
They're Legos.
Yeah. Totally.
The only one that's slightly different, I think, is the 7-liter. I think.
Maybe.
The big one?
out of the Corvette or something.
No, it was
the 8.1.
8.1. That's what it is.
Different.
That's what it is. Yeah.
It's kind of a unicorn.
Yeah.
So there was actually.
That's probably the one you wouldn't want to do.
There was one I traveled in Peru with one of those for a little while.
Really?
People were I have a picture of this or of my 05 and that one. It was an 06.
Yeah. Because that I can imagine you not finding
there's no
single part for it.
They're a little bit hard to get parts for here.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, nobody has them.
Yeah. They're great motor, but yeah, the parts are harder to get.
Yeah.
Because these are Legos. The parts on my 05 work on this. Most of them are interchangeable.
Yeah.
And the same for the 5.3 and the little whatever the 4.8. All the parts are more or less the same.
Yeah.
But yeah, the 8.1's a different story. I have a picture of a campground in Peru, and there are 4 rigs there, and they are all GMT 800s. So GM trucks between like 01 and I think we had an 06. There were 4 rigs. They're all GM trucks. There are no Land Rovers, no Toyotas, nothing. It was kind of wild. We weren't traveling together, and we had one of every motor. We had the Duramax, we had the 6.0, we had the 5.3, and we had the 8.1.
Wow.
And it was random. We just randomly met. Like everyone just pulled into the same camp. It was wild.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So everybody assumed we were traveling together, and we're like, nope, just being in Peru with our Chevy trucks. How old are you?
31.
31.
Yeah.
Wait till you get to be my age.
You're like
38.
you don't look that much.
No, I'm not. Nope. Yeah, it's been a long 38 years, so.
been a rough 38.
I wouldn't say rough, but I do feel like I've lived about 10 lifetimes. So, yeah. I'd actually say not rough at all. Like, I've been pretty lucky in my, like, I've got all these experiences, and, like, I've been pretty lucky in my life. So.
Okay, I remember. That reminded me where I was going. So, I don't know if you have a couple you want to talk about, that's fine too, but what's the wildest story you think you have from one of your trips?
Man.
Like crazy circumstance or like...
I don't know I think it's just maybe my favorite story. And it's kind of just an interesting experience, but I bought this crappy old KLR on Facebook Marketplace from a guy I still have never met. It was in Bolivia. And I just flew into La Paz, met the Bolivian family that was harboring this crappy KLR for me. They had stored it in their bedroom. And I just had all these wild experiences on that thing because it was hideously unreliable. Like my Chevy almost never broke. It was super comfortable, it worked really well. So it didn't have any of that adventure because it was breaking and you have to figure it out, right? Yeah. This KLR was a piece of crap from day one. I mean, and it had already done the Pan Am a couple times. It was just getting traded around to people, And I got all these. It was tired. It's I'm pretty sure it's still in Punta Arenas in Chile. I don't think it ever left. I was just like, here it is.
It's still
yours.
there and tired.
Yeah, I just gave it to someone. I didn't even get money for it. I was like, here you go.
It's your problem now.
It's your problem now. Good luck. I might not be able to get back into Chile actually because I never canceled the tip, so I don't know. But this bike, I was riding through the Atacama on a main highway in Chile, and this was really lucky because the day before I'd been way out in the middle of nowhere in Bolivia, across the border, driving down the road, and the chain snapped on this bike. And on a KLR, a lot of times when the chain snaps, it just cuts the stator wires off at the engine case. Like no wire sticking out, just nubs, not even nubs, just flat. And so not only do I have a broken chain, the bike also won't run because the stator wires are gone, right? There's no spark.
Yeah.
And I'm in the middle of nowhere. Like I'm on a major highway, but there's nothing in the middle of the Atacama Desert. I'm pretty handy at fixing things, and this is clearly not something I can fix beside the road. I'm like, well, all right, I remember seeing a gas station 10 miles back. I guess I'm going to start walking. And I start walking, and just like a mirage, out of nowhere, there's this emergency phone. Because it's in Chile. It's a pretty advanced country. There's just a phone just beside the road in the desert, middle of nowhere. And I'm like, hello? Just pick up the phone. And I'm trying to explain, this is going to be a long story. I'll try and get it as short as possible. But I'm trying to explain to them, I have a motorcycle. And Chilean Spanish, my Spanish isn't great. Chilean Spanish isn't even Spanish. Their accent's really weird. They can't understand me. I can't understand them. I'm trying to tell them I have a motorcycle. It's broke. They're like, bicycle. I'm like, no, motorcycle. They're like, yeah, bicycle. We get it. I'm like, it's a motorcycle. They're like, all right, we're sending a truck to get you. I'm like, it's a motorcycle. So they send 2 Chilean guys in this little K truck, and they show up. And it's been 2 hours. They're like, yeah, we'll be there in 30 minutes. It's just 2 hours. Little K truck shows up, and they're like, that's not going to work. I'm like, I know. Trying to tell you, I appreciate you're here for me, but it won't work. They're like, yeah, we're going to have to call a tow truck. I'm like, that's what I said. So they're like, all right. And so I'm hanging out with the Chilean guys. They come with a tow truck. They tow it up onto this flat deck. But again, there's nothing around. There's no major cities or anything. So they're like, there's no mechanic shops, but there's a bicycle repair shop. We'll take you there. Get to this bicycle repair shop.
Enough, right?
Kids close enough. Kid's 15 years old. I don't even think that you could fix a bicycle there. There's no parts. He's got a screwdriver and a pair of pliers, And I'm like, I don't think this is going to work either, guys. And they're like, oh man, well, we can drop you off at this like truck stop, I guess. It's an impound yard.
Probably better.
It's an impound yard, like truck stop kind of thing. And I'm like, okay, you know. And so they dropped me off. They're like, well, they didn't. There was nothing. It was like a rest. No. It was like a rest stop. It was like a bathroom and like an impound yard. There wasn't like a shop there or anything. Not even a gas station. So they're like, well, this is all we can do. It's like a public service, right? They're like, we can drop you here. That's all we can do. You know. Good luck. At least you're not in the middle of nowhere. You know. I was like, thanks. So I'm just like slightly less stranded. So I'm like sitting next to my bike, just dejected. It's about night, like the sun is going down. I'm preparing to just sleep next to my moto, like on the pavement, you know, next to my shitty broken KLR. And I have one of these like gasoline fired stoves. So when you light it up, it makes this like basketball of flame. And it's just gotten dark, so I light up this like basketball of flame, and these guys see it, and they come over, and I'm just like, I don't want to talk to anybody. Like I'm exhausted. Like leave me alone, right? And Colombians are incredibly nice people. And I'm in Chile. These guys are like, hey, what's going on? Like wow, I have one of these. Blah blah blah. I'm like, you guys are Colombian, aren't you? They're like, yeah. And I was like,
you know, I've heard that.
They're
before.
so nice, just really incredibly kind, like obnoxiously nice. And they're like, yeah, I have one of these in Colombia. They're talking about the motorcycle and all this stuff, and I'm telling them what's I'm like broke. Try to meet my brother in Santiago, which is like, let's say 1,200 or 1,600 kilometers from where I'm broken at. And they're like, oh, well, good luck. You know, and they get in their truck and they drive off. And I'm like, all right, I'm just eating my like shitty pasta that I've made sitting on the concrete in like a pool of oil. And about 5 minutes later, the truck comes back. And I'm like, great, they just want to talk more. And they're like, hey, you want to ride? And I was like,
they didn't think to offer.
They didn't think to offer the first time, and they were like, "Wait, maybe we should give that guy a ride." So they come back, and they're like, "You want to ride?" And I was like, "Yeah, like to the next town." They're like, "No, we're going to Santiago. You want to go to Santiago with us?" And I was like, "I mean, yes, but what about the motorcycle?" And they're like, "Yeah, that too." I'm like, "Yes, sounds great." And it's not like a semi, but it's like semi height. It's like a big 10-wheeler truck, van truck. So the deck is like, it's pretty high.
10-wheeler?
Yeah, it's like a 10-wheel truck. So it's like, I don't know, like a big, I don't know. It's just a big van truck, right? It's basically a semi, but with the box on the back instead of towing a trailer. Yeah. It's longer. So I'm like, how do we get the bike in the back? And they're like, oh, no problem. And I'm like, what do you mean no problem? One of the kids gets out. He's probably like 23. I'm still friends with him on Instagram. And he's like just jacked, you know, all these tattoos. And he's like, no, we got this. And they open the door and they just huck this KLR is like 650 pounds. They just huck it in the back of this truck. I'm like, okay. And we go in the truck and there's another truck inside the truck. Like there's a Mitsubishi pickup truck inside the back of this truck. And they just throw like a blanket on the front of the Mitsubishi and they just knock my bike over on it and lean it against it. I'm like, do you guys want to strap it down? And they're like, nah, it's fine. I'm like, okay, sure. So there's 3 Colombian guys, there's me, there's this truck. And I'm like, all right, great. We are on the fucking express train to Santiago. Like they're going to tag team this thing, like 8-hour shifts. No, we do 8-hour shifts. They drive for 8 hours. That's it. Then we hang out for the rest of the day. Even with 3 guys, takes forever, like 3 days to get to Santiago. But like, and so I'm like sleeping. The first night I sleep in the back of the truck, Like I'm sleeping in the back of this Mitsubishi in the back. And it's just this whole adventure where I'm like the gringo mascot because we're all like all the truckers are going the same direction. We stop at all the bad truck stops so they can show me their favorite hot dog, you know, or whatever it is. So every time we get out, like all the other truckers are like, it's the guys with the gringo. And I'm like, hey. And so we kind of just travel together in this like convoy, you know, for like 3 days. And it was a great experience. Like they didn't speak any English. So I only spoke Spanish, like my crappy Spanish for like 3 days. We were like arguing about what Fast and the Furious was best. They let me drive the truck. Once I explained to them I could drive truck, they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, I can drive truck. And they're like, sure, you can drive. So I'm driving the truck. And so, yeah, had a great time. And I was like, what's the truck in the back? Like, cause I was like, what are you guys hauling? And they're like, oh, office supplies. And I was like, what's the Mitsubishi in the back? And they're like, oh, that's another thing. And I was like, okay.
What was it?
So it was like they were just trucking it for like their friend, right? So they were employees. They were working for this other trucking company.
So they just happened to
but
have
their bro was like, hey, could you haul this truck for us? I'll give you some money. And they're like, yeah, sure. So they just like slip it in, put all the office supplies in the back. Not say anything to the owner's little side hustle. Yeah. So we get to wherever they drop off the truck. And after that, I put my hammock up in the back of the truck. And so I was just like in the hammock in the truck for like 2 days. Yeah, it was a great time. And just like one of those experiences that I think if you don't already have some experience where you're open to just saying yes to this stuff, you'd be like afraid, right?
Yeah.
And I actually...
Oh, I would be terrified.
Months later, I was telling this story to some other biker I met in Ushuaia, some American guy. And he goes, weren't you scared? And I had never even thought to be scared. I was just like, why? Yes, I was scared that my bike would be broken in Chile and then they were going to take me. They took me to Santiago. Like, no, I wasn't scared at all. Like, it was a great time. So,
like, I'd be nervous that...
Yeah,
somebody here, like.
and the guy that like hooked the bike in the back, I was like talking to him. I'm like, yeah, man, like, do you ever get to go back to Colombia? Like, how much did you go back to Colombia? And he was like, oh, no, I can't go back to Colombia. I was like, cool. All right, glad you're my friend. Like, we're bros. It's fine. Yeah. So I think he had some dark past in Colombia, and he was like, yeah, I can't go back there, but.
Oh man.
But yeah, no, I was never even scared. Like, I feel like never even thought of it.
I feel like most situations, I mean, obviously you only hear about the crazy stuff on the news, right? I feel like most situations people are just people.
Yeah. People are just super, super kind. They want to help you out, you know, and so, yeah, I've had far more good experiences.
Even here,
than
if
bad.
Somebody's like, I don't know, from halfway across the world and they're having a situation like that here, like I would be like, whoa, no way. Like,
right.
I'd be like stoked to help them
yeah,
out. Right?
Totally.
Like,
absolutely.
Like seeing somebody do something cool like that, because that's not a common thing.
Yeah.
Most people hardly even get to leave their town.
Right.
You know? Like,
yeah. I think that's totally the human experience. You have this natural urge to help someone else, you know, and give them a nice experience wherever you're from.
Yeah.
So that's been the vast majority of experiences that I've had. So there was another one in Namibia. We ended up picking up a whole family in that Hilux. We just had a crew cab Hilux with nothing in it, backpacking gear. Picked up this entire family. There were like 6 of them, and drove them a couple 2-3 hours because their car broke down. And the guy was like, "Do you want to see a cheetah?" And we were like, "Yeah, sounds great. Hell yeah, we want to see a cheetah." So we drive, and the cool thing, it was like he was speaking to his wife in like clicks and pops, like, because that was like her native language, included like the clicking and the popping, right? And I've just never even seen anything like that. It was wild. And we drive for whatever, a couple hours in the truck, and we get to wherever they're the like game farm where he works. And he's like, "Yeah, do you want to see the cheetah?" And we're like, "Sure," me and my ex. And we go into this like pen, right? Big like paddock. And I'm like thinking the cheetah is like, you know, we're going to use like binoculars and see the cheetah, right? Yeah. and we walk through this door, and he's like, "There's a cheetah, don't you see her?" And we're like, "No." And he's like, no, right there. And I'm like, "Fuck, there's a cheetah." I'm like, "Bro, that's a cheetah. Like, we need to get out, you know?" And he's like, and I'm like, shh, no, we don't want it to come closer. It's a cheetah, bro. What are you doing? And she's coming to us like this. She's got like the, you know, like this. And there's this thing in your brainstem where I'm like, I can run faster than you, you know? and then she and like, we're like, all right, we're trusting the experience, right? The guy's not freaking out. I'm like, okay. My brain alarm bells are just going wild. And I'm like, calm down, it's fine. Cheetah gets close and you can hear her purring, right? Just this giant cat just, and we're like,
it's just a cat.
Just a giant cat.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. And she comes up and she's like rubbing on our legs and we're scratching her ears and stuff like that. So it was just, again, one of those wild experiences where if you're not, you know, I stopped for this random family beside the road and gave them a ride, you know, and we said yes. If you don't say it, you don't open yourself up, you don't get to have those experiences. Yeah. And that's the stuff I really love, you know. So
that is crazy.
Yeah. Super fun.
So I know you're trying to go to Mexico. I guess we'll wrap it up.
Sure, man.
We've been planning to do a podcast. This was supposed to just be an interview, but I guess this is like first episode
Podcast
of the podcast
length.
now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm KP. KP Poly. I own Zero Declination in Reno, Nevada, and we love travel and experiences. So come by the shop, bring us some coffee, and I'll tell you more stories, if nothing else.
yeah.
Otherwise, I really love to help people build a rig that helps them have an experience, helps them truly use it as a tool to have a great travel experience.
Maybe when we do actually start the actual podcast, we'll have to have you on just to tell stories.
I'll come by. I love that.
That'd
I love
be
it.
awesome.
So, because I actually really, obviously it's my job because I own an overland shop. Talk about tires and bumpers and winches and crap.
That's just
I'd much rather tell fun
we're
travel
all car
stories.
guys. We all like that.
Yeah.
But it gets boring.
It totally gets boring.
I want to we want to tell like the life experiences behind it.
Absolutely.
Like there's a lot of people that build rigs like this that they go to the mall with it.
Right.
There's not a lot of people that build rigs like this that have the stories behind it.
Right. Yeah. And I love the stories. I want to hear your travel stories. I want to hear other people's travel stories. If you don't have travel stories, I want to help you build a truck and send you away.
Yeah.
So you can have some travel stories and
Yeah.
come back and tell me.
Yeah.
That's what I really have the passion for.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So I know Ken from OEV. You know Ken, right?
Yeah.
The one in Colorado.
Yep. Yeah. Yep.
So no, Ken from OEV hates this. So just because of that, smash the like button.
Smash it. Smash it, Ken.
And yeah, we'll do a little walk around.
Okay. Cool, man.
Wrap it up.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah. Dude, it's great.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was fun. Oh, man, I'm sore.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.